Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome. Today we're going to do an unboxing and give some initial impressions on Fire on the Mountain. This is a new Civil War game published by Legion Wargames and designed by John Poniske. I'm excited also because this will be the first Civil War game that we've looked at on the channel. It's been a subgenre I've been looking forward to digging into for quite a while, and this will be the start. So let's jump in and take a look. First up, I love the cover. I think it's really evocative, helps draw you into the battle. This battle happened on very hilly terrain, and we can see in the cover that kind of spells it out in terms of what's happening here on this and just helps draw you into the context of the game. Now, the Fire on the Mountain is the name of the game. It's about the Battle of South Mountain, so it's very much focused on this one-day battle that happened in the Civil War in Maryland. And the short story is that Northern forces were trying to come down and kind of reach Lee's forces, which were split, General Lee's forces, which were split up. So he sent a contingent to defend these gaps and these passes really in the mountains to prevent the Union forces from getting there. So the Union forces outnumbered the Confederate forces in this one-day battle, which basically was the Confederate forces trying to stop the Union forces from getting through these gaps and reaching Lee's army. Let's take a look at the back now and just kind of go through some of the basics of it, because we've kind of spelled it out in terms of this is a game that covers one day. Each turn here, we'll take a look kind of at these game scale and game components. Each turn is 1 hour, and the playing time is about 4 to 6 hours, which feels about right. I mean, it looks like there's going to be a moderate length to it. There's only the one scenario in here. There are some optional rules. So this is one scenario tightly focused on the Battle of South Mountain. The unit size is brigades. Each hex is about 300 yards per hex. And it says here, number of players, 1 or 2. I think this would, and I know a lot of people like Solitaire. This should work real well for Solitaire. I don't see any hidden movement rules or anything that would prevent you from playing both sides. There aren't Solitaire rules for it. There's not a Solitaire bot for it, but there's nothing to prevent you from playing both sides and examining the conflict from that perspective. And it seems like with the way the rules are set up and the way the game's built, this would be a great way to study this battle if you wanted to play it out that way and play both sides. So looks really kind of Solitaire friendly. They have it here, Solitaire suitability medium to high, which feels about right. You're going to be playing both sides as a two-player game. Game complexity, they list here as medium to low. Totally agree with that. I sat down yesterday at lunch. This game arrived yesterday. I sat down yesterday at lunch. I read through the rules in about a half an hour, kind of skimmed through them, and I feel like I'm ready to start playing. It's not, there's a lot of mechanics in here that are particular to the battle and particular to Civil War combat, but there's nothing particularly challenging, nothing particularly difficult in terms of the way the rules were written out. I felt like everything was really clear. So that low to medium-low complexity feels like a right thing. It's definitely not medium, and it's definitely, I mean, there's enough in it. There's a good number of mechanics that are going to cover a lot of different elements of the game. So as we start to look at stuff and look at the rule book. All right, so as we open it up here, we start with the dice. Combat, there are 10 dice, 5 of each color. Combat involves some dice throwing. Each strength point equals 1 die, and you're looking for 6s to hit. Now, there's a lot of die roll modifiers, and the maximum number of hits you can inflict on a brigade in one particular assault is 2. So it's not like you're going to see huge swings in combat this way. It feels like a really good system that's not... There's some luck if there's some dice, of course, but it's not going to be overly crazy in terms of, you're not going to score 6 hits and wipe something out and then score 0 the next time. We got baggies. Always appreciate the baggies. That's great. And let's jump in now and take a look at the rules. So the rule manual here is 16 pages, and there's an order of battle on the back. And we get how to win. There's an explanation of the battle, kind of the background of the battle on the front. And then the rules make up this middle part from pages 2 to 15. So all told, we have about 14 pages of rules. The text is pretty big. It's spread out in 2 columns. This is a matte finish, really clean and easy to read. Text is nice and big, and the rules seem very clear. There's a couple places where I had questions, and then kind of reading in another section, I was able to figure out the answers to the questions. So looking at this, it took me about a half an hour to get through it. Over lunch again, didn't have any problems. It's nice color. Everything's explained really well. Lots of neat mechanics in here too. So we'll take a look at the counters, because the counters are double wide counters, which for a lot of the military units in the battle. And there's a really neat system with some large hexes that's going to allow you to kind of have some cool facing with this. It looks like it's a really neat system. I get a little bit of a sense that there's almost a miniatures element behind it. So we got artillery, range, and line of sight for artillery, just to look through some of the mechanics that are in here. And then leaders, presence, we've got a couple of optional rules. It outlines the sequence of play. Sequence of play is relatively straightforward. I'll put it up here so you can see it too, but we've got a rally phase, movement phase, reinforcement phase, and then a combat phase. And at a particular point in the game, the Union forces have a Burnside roll phase, because Burnside was a general who showed up in the middle of the battle and then basically just told the Union to pause, and that hesitation allowed the Confederate forces to reinforce and change the outcome, potentially change the outcome of the battle, making it harder for the Union to win. So those are basically the phase. They're relatively straightforward. Defensive artillery fire. Combat's got a number of little mini phases to it, but they all make sense. Retreat and rout, leader casualties. And the way you win here is a decisive victory if you hold both of Fox's Gap and Turner's Gap. So basically, again, the Union forces were trying to take two gaps and break through to reach the main Union army. If you hold both of them, you win a decisive victory. If each of those are split, then you use a victory point system for determining who wins. Let's take a look now at the counters here. Two counter sheets. These are beautiful, as always. Legion Wargame stuff is really, I'm really impressed with the quality of production they're putting out in their games now. It's just clean, easy, looks really good. And we can see here that there are two types of counters. I'll show some close-ups on them. We've got, these are about 6/10 of an inch counter on these single width ones. And then the two-sided counters, you place them in a hex against two of the sides of the hex. So the two hexes in front of you are going to be the front, the two to your side are going to be the side, and the two behind you are to your rear. So there's all kinds of a facing element, but it works really neat with these double width counters. These are each 1.2 inches wide and 6/10 of an inch high. So nice big counters, easy to read. They're each a strength factor. Movement is standardized across the battle, and each one of these has a strength factor. And then you can see the smaller print here, especially if I show some close-ups. Those are just for unit identification, so which units were actually made up this particular brigade in the battle. And we can see again we've got cavalry, artillery, and infantry here represented. They are two-sided. There's a step system in the game, a multiple step system. So if we look, for example, at, let's pull out one of the other ones here. Blue and light blue, by the way, are the Union forces, and then the gray are the Confederate forces. And for example, if we look at this Seymour unit here of one of the Unions, I'll show, I think it's probably pretty visible here. We get a 5, a 3, and a 1. So this is the 5-step version of this unit. So this all represents one unit. 5, 3, 1, and then the other side are going to be the 4 and the 2, which we can see here, Seymour's 4 and 2 represented that way. So this unit's got 5 steps. Some have less, but less than that, but you're going to kind of work through these different steps as you take casualties and stuff. So it's a very cool system. Here are leaders and generals down below, and then a bunch of markers to represent the different activities going on in the game. So really nice counter set. I'm looking for it. I love the double width counters. Those look pretty cool. Now here we have 2 orders of battle. So there's not a huge set of player aids here, so you can kind of use this to keep track of forces, and there's a reinforcement schedule as forces kept appearing during the course of the battle. So there's going to be a reinforcement schedule, and so the battle ebbs and flows back and forth depending upon who's coming in. So this is the Confederate order of battle. Then we have the Union order of battle. Again, these are all single-sided, so you can use these to control reinforcements and everything. Another single-sided player aid here is the detailed sequence. This is the game setup in the reinforcement schedule. So we can see 7 a.m. This is what comes in, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and then as late as 3 p.m. There's some Confederate forces that show up. So this is what you use basically to control when units arrive in the battle. And pretty straightforward. And then this is a detailed sequence of play, as well as this looks like a collection of the information you want to be looking up in the rule book a lot of the time. So they put this all on one player aid, so you wouldn't have to kind of dive into the rule book so often. So you get morale check, regroup, commanders, Burnside roll, and then the rally phase, as well as a detailed explanation of the sequence of play. There do seem like there's quite a few edge cases in the game. So the game seems straightforward. I think what I could see myself doing the first playthrough a lot is to be kind of looking at these rules to make sure I've got some of these edge cases straightened out. And we do have some optional rules. There's 3 optional rules that you can use in the battle, and so those would take a little bit of extra thinking if you want to bring those in too. Now, as much as I like the counters, I think the map is my favorite part of the game. This is, Rick Barber is listed as one of the contributors to this map, and then there is a second designer. So the map arc says here, Rick Barber and Edmund Hudson worked together on this map. Of course, Rick Barber is no longer with us, and his outstanding map work shall live on forever here. This is a 22 by 34 inch map. It's a glossy paper map, a low gloss paper map here. Looks fine. The counters are, let me just measure these again. I measured them once and I forgot. So these are wide enough for the double width counters to fit. So roughly 1 1/4, 1 1/8, a little bit less in terms of inches here width on these. So you can basically, what you do is, actually I'll take one out now and just kind of show how it works because it's pretty cool, I think. Now I haven't played, one of the things I've been doing as I've gotten back into wargaming is I wanted to play some Civil War games, and this will be the first one for me to take a look at. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into this one, and I'll show a kind of a close-up of this map too, and we can kind of talk a little bit about it. But if I punch out one of these counters, we can take a look at how it works. So basically, if a counter were to go down like this on the map, and I'll zoom in here and show a close-up of this. The front two hexes here are the front facing, these two are the sides, and these two are the rear. And there's no zone of control that this unit exerts to the rear, just to the sides and to the front. So a really neat system that covers kind of, they've designed the map to fit the counters and the counters to fit the map. And it feels like a game that's been very well thought out and very well designed. And I'm excited to dig in and play it. It just feels like it's going to be a lot of fun to play. I feel like, I mean, you never know until you play something, right? So we start at 7 a.m., we go to 9 p.m., we've got each turn, it's about a 4-hour game, but I feel like this is a game that, because of its low complexity rule set, because of the uniqueness of the battle and a lot of the different ebb and the flow and the beauty of these components and stuff like this, I feel like this is a game that's going to get to the table a lot. Like, it's not going to be a game you buy and don't play. I think it feels accessible in many ways. So very excited for that, and I'll show some close-ups here of the map as we pull it out. Really cool looking, and one of the things I want to call your attention to too as well is there's an altitude marker over here on the right-hand side that shows the different altitude of the hexes, and there is from 400 feet elevation to 1,600 feet elevation up here at the top of the northeast corner. Well, this actually is not northeast. This would be the northwest corner of the map. North is this way. And here we have Turner's Gap, and then Fox's Gap must be here somewhere. I think it's this, Fox's Gap is over here on the other side to the left here. So we have the two gaps that we're fighting for. And then high ground is here, and then low ground is down to this map, to this part. So just a huge difference in altitude. And that actually played a big role because the Confederate forces were outnumbered, and they had the higher ground, which enabled them to even though they were heavily outnumbered at times, they were able to fight more effectively because of using this altitude and the rugged terrain here. I mean, we can see the map, I think, exudes that type of kind of rugged. We got woods and hills, and some of the stuff is steep. I mean, and this plays out in the rule set too. There's a lot of little kind of explanations on how you handle, for example, 300-foot altitude differences, which are the maximum you can get between a hex side. So that limits a lot of the activity that can go on there. So I think being successful in this game is going to be using altitude well and trying to not let the Confederate forces use altitude well if you're playing the Union forces here. So yeah, beautiful map, beautiful components, easy to learn, very accessible. I'm excited. I think, now of course, the test is always when you break it out and play it, but I'm really looking forward to this, to kind of getting this one to the table. It just arrived yesterday, and it's recently released. It just came out I think less than a week or so ago. And again, this is a review copy from Legion Games, so thanks to them for passing this on. Moving forward, as always, I think what I'd like to do for this one, I don't know if it would be feasible to play the full 4 to 6 hour game on video. That would be probably 18 to 20 videos, but I'd like to do at least a demo of gameplay, like to show how it works and things. So I think that's the next step, and then come back after playing it a couple times to do a fuller review of the game. So I think we'll see that come up on the channel as soon as I've had a chance to dig in and play it a little bit more. But there you go. Let me know what you think. I'm excited. I think it's going to be really fun. It feels like a very well self-contained package. A lot of different stuff, a lot of different really fun rules to kind of dig into that kind of represent the combat of the battle. Looks like it's going to be a great game to play. I'm excited about it. So there you have it, Fire on the Mountain. Let me know what you think. Should be forward with more videos on it coming up in the near future. And thanks so much, as always, for tuning in and watching it. If you have enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy our unboxing of Captain C, another game from Legion Wargames, a completely different nature. Ship combat in the Age of Sail, which is Ships Dueling. So I'll put a link to that one up here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody.